Hrim Shrim Hrim Nitya Devi Namaha.
Namaste everyone. Today we are going to talk about Dashami Tithi or 10th lunar day in Vedic astrology. And 10th lunar day is covered by air element, planet moon and guna of tamas. And during this specific tithi or this specific lunar day, really the dreamy or the imaginative nature of the moon is at its highest. So these people have enormous imagination, in fact can be very creative too. Because if you saw, how the goddess looks like, her name is Nitya. So the presiding Devi, presiding goddess of this lunar day, is called Nitya, the eternal one. She's interested in literally everything, She's interested in all the infinite possibilities which this world is bringing. That's why she has so many hands, so many heads, looking in many, many different directions at the same time. So similarly, the Dashami natives are interested in many different things, in many people. They like to connect many different things. But simply, when this airy energy is sometimes getting too much or too exaggerated in their birth chart, they might also experience some sort of confusion due to too much information going on into themselves and simply entering, their inner space. Connection is unbelievably important thing for all Dashami natives, because the planetary ruler here is Moon himself. And what is the main nature of the Moon? Moon wants to be friends with everybody. So also these people, they want to be friends with everybody. They are actually really, really friendly people usually. But what is really fascinating, that they really, value this connection. So if one of your friends is the Dashami native, you might notice that they really expect you to actually dedicate some time for them, because it's very important, very nourishing for them. Or whenever you're meeting, the Dashami native, for the first time, they tend to see 10 things that you have in common. They're just like, oh my god, I have the same, oh my god, we are doing the same thing. And sometimes they even see connections that are seriously not existing, So that's a really funny thing and funny quality about the Dashami natives, that they really go full-heartedly into any sort of connection. And also, whenever they're asking for half hour, of talk, then out of sudden it turns out to be 4 hours, in the end. So I'm talking about it from my own experience, because one of my best friends, she's also the Dashami native, and it's a very prominent quality in them. They simply need this connection, because through other people they are learning a lot and they are getting to know themselves more. They simply need these other people as the mirror so they can see themselves more clearly. The Dashami Tithi is also all about collecting information, gathering lots of information. One of the names of the goddess here, Nitya, is also Jnana Swarupini, so the one who is embodiment of wisdom. So these people love to, gather lots of different informations, and even if you talk to them, they love to know all your secrets. But please be careful, because these are usually the people who are not so good in keeping your secrets. So even if they say, yes, I will not tell anybody, it more or less looks like, they will just go to one person and say, please don't tell it to anybody, but this person does this and that. So they have sometimes, this quality of gossiping also, which they definitely need to try to control a little bit more. But also because they are gathering so much of information, sometimes they might have actual difficulty in processing that. And they are actually very sensitive, towards their environment. They are unbelievably sensitive to what is happening around them. And simply sometimes they might face problems with processing them. Their mind may have problems with processing many different things going on around them. Which is why you can see that very often, if the moon is in any way afflicted in their chart, they might even develop some sort of mental disbalance sometimes. So this is something they need to be really careful about. So Goddess Nitya, the Eternal One, also blesses her natives with this access to infinite information. And because they kind of have this access to infinite information, people very often also confess to them or tell them their secrets. These people often try to seek meaning, in all this ocean of information. They try to get some meaning out of it. But sometimes they might go actually a little bit too far, and they might really go into seeing connections and meaning where there's no meaning and connection at all. And this is again something they need to be a little bit more careful about. So sometimes they might get too obsessed with some patterns, they might be too obsessed with past lifetimes or any sort of connections, or they simply, even if you talk to them, they try to, relate too much, but somehow it all, it doesn't always, how to say, fit, So this is something they need to really kind of let go a little bit more of this quality of just trying to seek very badly connection and meaning in everything. For example, you might find with this placement these people who are into astrology and they try very badly to connect everything with everything, which sometimes doesn't really work, frankly speaking. So they need to be a little bit more, what they really need to actually develop is this quality of discernment. To discern between what is true and what is not true. Because sometimes they might just get too lost in their own thoughts and too lost, in their own mental processes. Dashami natives have also enormous imagination, which is why you will find great book writers or great movie directors with this exact Tithi or lunar day. And actually, creating something is a very constructive way of using their power of imagination. Otherwise, with their power of imagination is kind of too much turned towards themselves or their own life, they might even imagine things which are not there, And specifically, if you are Dashami native and if you yourself are on spiritual path, you really must be careful not to imagine things that are not existing, not to imagine feelings of intuition or anything that is not existing. These people also very often, you may see that they are super interested in past lives, and very often, they might, kind of feel, oh, I was this or that person in previous lifetime. This is something that I am actually keep seeing over and over and over again with the Dashami natives. And obviously, very often they think that there were some great personalities in previous lifetimes, but thing is that you really don't know. And like my Gurudev always says, it's better that you focus on the present moment rather than trying to imagine things or dwelling too much in the future or in the past. Because honestly, he himself was laughing that he knows at least 20 incarnations of Maria Magdalena. Obviously he was laughing, right? Because there are so many people who claim to be one. So one also very important quality for them to learn is to control their power of imagination, and again, discernment. The ability to discern between truth and between what is false or what is illusion. You actually can also see great illusionists with that placement. So if you collect all the previous qualities, like enormous imagination, also gathering all the informations, sensitivity, you can also see that these people, because of, again, receiving so much information from the outside and being so sensitive to everything that is happening around them, they might become very confused also. I actually noticed in my own astrology practice that the Dashami natives are the most prone, for some sort of mental confusion and even mental disease, in fact. I have seen lots of people who actually really developed some sort of mental disease because simply it's a little harder for them than for other Tithi natives to discern between the truth and the reality. Honestly, for them it is much harder than for other people. They are simply a little bit too much in their head, in their imagination, in their creativity, and they may lack some sort of grounding, So I have really seen people who either developed mental disease, anorexia, even, like eating disorders, depression, and even schizophrenia, in fact, or like multiple personality disorder. So you can really see those things with the Dashami native, but please don't take it, like too personally, because just because you are born on the Dashami Tithi doesn't mean that you will develop a mental disease. But what it definitely means for you is please be very careful between discerning what is true, what is not true. In your words, in your thoughts, in your actions. Learn to really discern those things. Learn to be a little bit more grounded and a little bit less in your own head. And what is actually very helpful for those people is to find some sort of very healthy routine. What I noticed also that these people really often don't care about eating at all, which is why sometimes, if it's like really extreme planetary placement, it can lead to anorexia or any other eating disorder. But they really need to, have this healthy routine. eat meals always at the same time, for example. Do something at the same time. Meditate at the same time. Just find some sort of healthy routine in your daily life. It will help you enormously with feeling of confusion. In fact, these are the sort of people, like, for every, Tithi native, I would always say that please meditate every day because it's great. It always cools down the mind. It always makes your mind and perception more fresh. But for the Dashami natives, it's a must. They just can't start their day without meditation. They really must meditate, and they will feel enormously better by doing so. The Dashami natives are also typical daydreamers. Even if they don't see themselves as one, very often, they are, in their own heads, in their own plans, in their own dreams, and the ideas which they would like to realize. Actually, their own ideas become their world very often. Their own concepts, their own thoughts become their world. And thing is, that because they have this access to unlimited information, and because, they really actually have a good heart and they want to connect with others, very often they like to share their ideas, their dreams with other people, or they even love to actually give advice to others. This is something that they really love to do, but sometimes, the advice is either inadequate for the exact person, or simply, they talk from this level of this high spirituality to the person who, for example, has no idea at all about spirituality. And what happens, what is the result of that? That after some time, people actually may tend to really just stop taking them seriously. Because to other people, it may seem like they are just repeating their own story all the time, and that they can't even relate to them that much. So if you are the Dashami Tithi native yourself, you might really try to control, you might really like to try to control this quality in you, this constant, either giving advices to others, or just reaching them from the point of your own dreams, spiritual approach to things, really whatever. I know that when you are the Dashami Tithi native, you know exactly what I am talking about. But if you yourself have any Dashami native in your environment, please don't disregard their advice and ideas always, because sometimes they might actually have good solutions, Even if many times whatever they're saying might be a little bit inadequate or spaced out, you could say, not fitting to the exact situation, very often they might actually come with some really creative solution. So please don't disregard them because of who they are and the way they are, but also respect them, how they are, respect their need to dream, to realize their idea, to be creative and to be sensitive. The Dashami natives, also as I said a couple of times before, they are very emotional and very sensitive people, really sensitive ones. So even if you are doing a reading for the Dashami native, you might like to be a little bit more sensitive, not to hurt, their feelings, and not to hurt their pride too, because they might have quite a high pride sometimes actually. So you would like to really, deliver the truth to them, little by little. Not to overwhelm them too much with things, because they get very easily overwhelmed. In fact, the Dashami natives, sometimes they are so sensitive to everything that is happening in their environment that they might actually soak the emotions and even, thoughts of others very easily. And, if you are soaking the emotions and thoughts from your environment so easily, how it results, What result does it bring? Is that after some time you can't even discern what is your thought, what is something that you got from somebody else. And this is again when this confusion happens. So what is actually very, very, very important for those natives is really, to be more grounded, do meditation, learn to discern between your own truth, your own true voice, and the voice of your environment too. The Dashami natives also very easily connect, to other dimensions. They very easily connect, to their dreams. So very often you might see actually very spiritual people, or people who kind of get their ideas or inspiration from, you would not even know from where they are even taking some of their ideas. Some of the most brilliant movie directors, or the most brilliant actors too. So these are the people who are really somehow connected, to just other dimensions of living. But again, they need to take care that when they are connecting to other dimensions, first of all, that they don't connect to something weird, and second thing, that they really always stay grounded and that they simply don't lose the contact with the reality. Dashami natives, like natives of all Purna Tithis in fact, so Tithis governed by air element, sometimes stay a little bit too much in their comfort zone too. So sometimes they need a little push in the back, in order to take action, or they simply seek confirmation, actually. So very often you will see people like the Dashami natives who come to you for astrology consultation just to get confirmation of their ideas. And unfortunately, sometimes if you say something different to them, they might be very disappointed. So be careful with that. But also, if you're the Dashami native yourself, you need to be a little bit more open for receiving feedback and honest feedback, a sincere opinion from other people. The Dashami natives can be also very self-focused sometimes, so they just want to hear about themselves, their ideas. They can be a little bit proud too, especially the spiritual pride. This is something that you will see so many times with the Dashami natives, really. Or the pride about their achievements, They're not showing it in a very obvious way, usually, but they simply, sometimes they might somehow tend to feel or think that they're more special than anybody else. And that is actually a really unhealthy thing. Again, this comes from their power of imagination. They kind of boost themselves in their own eyes a little bit. So again, if you're the Dashami native yourself, you might like to really be a little bit more humble. And the self-centeredness of them also, again, whenever they give advice to others, they tend to measure everybody by their own measure. So they're like, oh, this helped me, so it will for sure help you too. But you know what? Everybody is different, and it's simply not always the case. So they need to really kind of, look beyond themselves. They really need to learn to look at other people and interact with other people in such a way that they also understand and hear other people, that they don't just constantly seek attention or receiving energy for themselves. Because very often, actually, the Dashami natives, they really recharge their energy through interaction with other people, through receiving nourishment of other people. And it's not bad, but simply try not to abuse that. So if you would look at the yantra of Goddess Nitya, or the yantra of the Dashami Tithi, you would see that it actually looks like one big fractal. And this is why, these people seek so many meanings in everything and connections between everything. But they also like to repeat themselves a lot. This is something that I really noticed about the Dashami natives, that very often you might see like they are kind of in their own story, or like whenever they will come to you to interact with you, they in a way all the time repeat you the same story. And it's very hard for them to also get out of, their story sometimes, because sometimes it's not a good story, sometimes they might be stuck in their worries, in their destructive habits too, in their addictions also. This can also happen with the Dashami Tithi. So sometimes it's very important for them to really just get out of their story, and to not be, again, so focused on themselves or the way they see the world, but to just open up and see other possibilities. The Dashami natives are also usually very intuitive. And sometimes they don't even realize that, but their intuition is really great. The only problem with their intuition is that sometimes, due to so many emotions and so many thoughts going on in their mind, they don't hear the voice of the intuition. Or they imagine that the voice of their thoughts and their emotions is the voice of the intuition. So one of the biggest tasks for them is to, again, learn to discern between the voice of your mind and emotions and the voice of your true intuition. And many times, people are asking this question, like how to even recognize, how to discern between the mind talking to you and your true sincere intuition talking to you. And my Guruji, he explained it so beautifully and so easily, that your own intuition will never flatter you, will never flatter your ego. Please remember that if you're the Dashami native. So if your intuition is telling you that you are great or you are some great personality in previous lifetime, trust me, most likely it's your ego and your own mind. But intuition never works like that, you know. True intuition really comes from the divine, and it never, you know, flatters your ego, because it's not in the interest of God to actually flatter you. It's in the interest of God to teach you. So true intuition will just tell you, do this, do that. Intuition won't explain you why you should do this or why you should do that, you know. It will just tell you, do this and do that. And sometimes it might be completely irrational, you know. But when you truly follow your own intuition, no matter how irrational the advice from your intuition may seem to you, you will always succeed. So that was my short analysis of Dashami Tithi, or 10th lunar day in Vedic astrology. If you would like to learn more about Dashami Tithi or any lunar day, really, you can just purchase my ebook, Journey with the Moon, which is 330 pages just about the Tithis, or sacred lunar phases. You can also join me on my Patreon community. The monthly subscription is only $27 a month, and you are getting access to all my webinars, and we are meeting also twice a month to discuss all interesting topics in Vedic astrology. Or you can also join me on intense course just on the Tithis, or sacred lunar phases, with cosmic insights, which is going to take place very soon. Thank you so much for your attention. You have all the links below. Namaste.